Again, I'd also like to say thanks for showing up on Monday morning, especially after a long weekend and a good time. I'm Kevin. I head the South for Andhra and Telangana for Cambridge International and anything the schools have to do with Cambridge regarding the culture aspect. So we usually, I think we already did an orientation online for some of the parents who may have been present for that session, we may have not. But this particular session where the school has decided to take up Cambridge and normally put the kids in the Cambridge and then us doing the orientation after that is quite rare. But we're glad to be here. And also I live quite close by, so I thought why not come into a session with parents directly, which is not something that we usually do, but I'm very happy that the school requested this from us and I'm glad that the parents also showed up. I was still a little skeptic, did there be enough parents on a Monday morning, but thank you so much for showing up. Before I start today, I thought we did go over a few of these points, like I said in the previous presentation, but I'm going to go over it anyway today as well, assuming that some of you might not have been present. But of course, the other main objective is to answer a lot of the questions that you might be having. But to be quite honest and blunt about it, that these questions I don't think will stop, and I don't think you'll get clear answers to any of them. Or at least you might get clear answers for a lot of the questions, but a few of them you will still have your doubts. And I think it's okay for those doubts to happen. It's a good Cambridge classroom if you still have doubts. But the idea is that I'm able to at least put you in the right direction where you can get your doubts clarified either through your class teachers over the course of the year, or your first class session for your kids, or just in time so that you're also comfortable with the curriculum. One thing that we will have to keep in mind, and this is something that we tell all schools, new schools, existing schools, schools that have run national curriculum for a lot of years, schools that have just opened yesterday, they have to do a lot of unlearning of what they know and a relearning of what they have done. And by that I don't mean that they have to unlearn everything because they learned everything wrong. It's just a different school of thought. Right? So, and through the course of the session today, at no point of time will we make, and we don't make this assumption that the other curriculum is better than our curriculum, or Cambridge International curriculum is better than that curriculum. But all three, let's say national curriculum and the international curriculums, all have different schools of thought. The way the curriculum is delivered is completely different. The content is still pretty much the same. The content of what the child will learn is still the same. But the way it's being delivered changes with each curriculum. And each board and each curriculum body has a different way of delivering. That is pretty much what it is. What changes with few of these curriculums is how much support the teacher has to deliver that curriculum. So, for example, national curriculum, huge advantage of a legacy of so many years of training and experience for teachers within the country. There are some international curriculums that depend on the teacher a lot in the classroom. There's, for example, IB. Great curriculum, fantastically designed, it's very, very good. But one of the challenges is that there's a lot of dependence on the teacher. So your teacher has to be a 15 or 10. They have to be really good because they don't have that much support. But that's how this curriculum is built. With Cambridge, one of the key differences is we do depend on the teacher. The teacher does play an important role. But we know that they need a lot of support in the classroom. So from Cambridge, there is a lot of support, a lot of training, and it's not a one-time thing. Like I said, all your questions and all your doubts and all your fears might not go away today. It will take some time, but that's the idea. Even your teachers are going through the same journey. So, cut them some slides. They will take some time as well to be more comfortable in the way they're delivering the curriculum. And if you hear even a teacher that has 20 years of experience come and tell you that, yeah, I'm very confident delivering the curriculum, I think you should have your doubts. Because it changes every day. Just the other day, I did a 25-minute presentation for schools as to what's new in Cambridge in the last 6 months. Because that's how the curriculum changes, and it's good that it keeps evolving. Quick example, we had in Cambridge, we have 11th and 12th as well, which is we call it AS and A level. 11th and 12th is called AS and A level, and they have something called media studies. Until last year, one of the projects that the child had to do was to come up with a social media page. with all metrics. How do you brand, if it's a social media page, how do you brand it, how do you put it out there, how do you get traction, how do you get engagement. That was one of the projects and one of the subjects that we have in 11th and 12th. And then there was a lot of feedback from across teachers and parents and students across the world saying, we are trying to get off social media. You are giving us a project that is core social media, which was a very legit question to have. And then we had to make a small change, but I think an important change, that the media of the project can be student dependent. If they want to create a website as of today, still works. If they want to create a blog, still works. But it has to be in the form of digital media, it doesn't have to be social media. Now we made this change 4 or 5 months ago. But now, with the advancement of AI, I don't see how making a website is relevant as of today. So it will go across on another change. And that's what keeps happening throughout our company. There's constant change, constant evolving. So if your teacher says that, yeah, I'm 100% sure what I'm delivering, take it to the picture so. Right? So I thought I would be doing a lot of this today, which is to just, it'd be great for me to tell you a few points relating that. So Cambridge, of course, is part of the University of Cambridge. The University of Cambridge functions as a university, and there are a bunch of things that the university does. One of them is international curriculum. We've been doing this for a really long time, but at the same time, there is Cambridge University Press and Assessment. So there's books, a lot of books that are being designed and created and published for schools, for international schools, for CBSE schools. There's books being created for college, for university levels as well. But at the same time, there's a lot of assessment that happens, which is examinations. I don't know if you've heard of IELTS. That's an examination that's conducted by Cambridge. There's a lot of English examinations that are there right from grade 1 all the way to grade 12. That is also conducted by Cambridge. So there's a lot of things that the university does as a part of University Press and Assessment. Cambridge International is restricted for international schools, Cambridge International Schools only. Now, what this means is not limited to the books. Just so that we can throw this, myth right out the window in the beginning of the session is, at Cambridge International Curriculum, the books pretty much come last in the classroom. There are a few curriculums that are very resource dependent, and there are curriculums that are teacher dependent. Cambridge International Curriculum is a lot more teacher dependent and classroom environment dependent than resource dependent. Again, that's a choice that you have to make as a parent. Do you want your kids learning to be resource dependent? When they're probably in the older years, resource dependent, which is in their college, resource dependent is much more ideal. But when they're younger years, you want the teaching and learning to come from the teacher, so that your child figures out how to learn. And that's really what's important in the younger, even the early years and even grades 1 to 5. In Cambridge, there's a huge focus on how the child learns. What they learn is consequence of what happens in the classroom, but the main focus is how they learn. What we're trying to do in a Cambridge classroom is to give the student a template of learning anything in the future. So a lot of parents do ask us, would Cambridge International Curriculum be relevant in 10, 15 years now, or 20 years from now, when your child will be going, for their first job or their first university? I don't think I can give you an honest answer saying yes, they will be ready. It's impossible. We don't know. A lot has changed in the last 1 year. In the past 2025 to 2026, there's been a lot of change. So for me to come up and tell you that, yeah, Cambridge International Curriculum is 100% foolproof for this particular future that we have. But something that we do at the university and at the curriculum is to make sure that whatever the future is, we want to make sure the child is ready for that. Which is why there's a lot of focus on how the child learns. So at any point of time, if you want the kid to learn, or if you want to learn any subject or any topic, they should know the formula of learning that particular subject. Which is why you will see that the learning divisions in our classroom are not necessarily subject-based. And I'll just come to that in the next slide. To give you a few numbers, of course we work in 160 countries, over 10,000 schools worldwide. In Andhra Pradesh and Telangana today we have about 90 odd schools that run Cambridge International Curriculum. but different schools run different levels. For example, currently here we have early years and grades 1 to 5. Some schools do only 6, 7, and 8. Some schools do the entire pathway, which is early years all the way to grade 12. But these schools also have started Cambridge a long time ago. Right, so it depends on what levels, but on the whole, cumulatively we have about 90 odd schools delivering Cambridge curriculum in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana specifically, and we have about 10,000 of them across the world. We still are the world's largest provider for international qualifications. I don't think there's any curriculum that comes close to this number. Just to highlight your child's path for the future and how it would look like, I thought it would be good for me to show you this slide. Although the slides that what we'll be talking about specifically today are here. That's Cambridge Early Years and Cambridge Primary. Cambridge Early Years is pre-primary, so that's nursery, PP1, PP2. I don't know what the classes here are called, but that's the section. And then you have grades 1 to 5, which is primary. Then lower secondary is grades 6, 7, and 8. Then you have upper secondary, which is grades 9 and 10. You must have heard the word IGCSE thrown around a lot. So IGCSE is not all of this. IGCSE is only this. So when a school says, yeah, we are an IGCSE school, they are 9 and 10 only specifically. It is confused a little bit, a lot of people get it wrong, but just for your clarity, early years, primary, lower secondary at 6, 7, 8, upper secondary is 9 and 10, and then we have Cambridge Advanced, which is 11 and 12. So there are only a handful of curriculums that do the entire pathway for a student. So there are some curriculums that only start from here, some curriculums that only happen till here, and very few that go along the path, right, from early years to Cambridge Advanced. You will see this, I'll come to this later, but you'll see this one strip here which says professional development for teachers and school leaders. The reason this stretches from early years till advanced is because the teachers are being trained only for that specific segment. So there is specialized training. Within that segment, there are different verticals as to what they will be trained in, but that happens throughout. So we'll never have a teacher not being trained in that year. They are constantly being trained. Updates are different. Trainings are different. Trainings continue to happen, updates continue to happen, but both are two parallel activities. So I'm sure it would be great for us to specifically talk about early years because we are running early years at Scholars. There's a little information here, I'm not sure how much you can see, but I'll just quickly go through it. Of course, like I said, it's for that age group of 3 to 6 year olds. It's based on the most up-to-date education thinking and research. One of the key points from Cambridge is to be flexible. That's something that we often talk about as a curriculum. It's extremely flexible in terms of your future, on what your child would like to do, flexible in terms of the now, as to what your child wants to pick up, flexible in terms of the school, as to what kind of subjects they want to offer a student. The early years, of course, like I said, if you look at these things, they are not the subjects that your students are becoming, but they're the concepts that they will be doing definitely. What they might be called as a subject, for example, mathematics, of course, will be called mathematics. But understanding the world doesn't necessarily come off as understanding the world. It's told to the kids very differently. Creative expression, communication, language and literacy, personal, social and emotional development. Now these are the 6 principles that the teacher, the book, the resource book and the curriculum are constantly putting into focus. Right? These are the 6 principles that are always being looked at. And of course this comes from a lot of research over the years at the university as well. To complement these things, for example, physical development. Now, how we look at physical development in a Cambridge classroom is that of course, we thought that was quite important. It's not necessarily the academics that need to be covered, but physical development is also part of the curriculum. So if your PE teacher in the school is taking a physical development class, or even your early years teacher is taking a physical development class, they won't tell the students that now it's physical development time. Right? But the way it's done is slightly different. So let me give you an example, a very, very simple example. In maybe PP1 or PP2, there's an activity for a student where the objective for the teacher is that the student needs to get comfortable with the idea of physical exercise. That's the objective that's given to the teacher. And the teacher has this on a document. It will be given to them as through Cambridge. They'll get a document saying your objective for today and for today's class is for the student for today's, let's say this term's classes, your student in the room needs to be comfortable with the idea of physical exercise. Very simple aspect to think of, but how do they get them to be comfortable with physical exercise? It would involve students' hand-eye coordination doing, and how you could help the students' hand-eye coordination better. Today, throw a ball at them. It's that detail. I know what I'm saying would sound a little trivial, but for us it's quite core as to what they'll be doing in the next parts of their curriculum. One of the most important part of the Cambridge curriculum, some of you might already know this concept, is called a spiral approach. A spiral approach is where a student starts off at the concept right in the beginning. The teacher gives them the concept, gives them the fundamentals, they understand it, they engage with it, and then they move on to the next grade. When they move on to the next grade, they come back to the same topic all over again. But the second time they come back at a slightly deeper context. They engage with it slightly deeper, and they understand it a slightly more. And then when they go up, they come back to the same topic all over again. There was a question regarding how does a student go up in the older grades. That of course is going to be a challenge. But at the same time, the teachers, like I said, there's a huge dependency on the teachers. One of the dependency on the teachers is they are the only people who understand the student in that classroom, and no one else would understand the student in that classroom more than that teacher. So, one of the key concepts of spiral approach is the student needs to have prior knowledge. Right? If they're talking about date and time, the student needs to have prior knowledge about, can you guess? Let's say we're doing a class on date and time. And today we're doing this class. What prior knowledge would we need for a class regarding date and time? Anybody? What would help us in this class if you're doing date and time today? Sorry? Any guesses? Teachers can answer as well. Numbers?
Yeah.
We would need to know numbers to understand date and time. That would be considered as prior knowledge. There's a very key aspect here called understanding the world. One topic that the teacher focuses on in the early years, and even 1 to 5, grades 1 to 5, is me and the world. What is my place in this world? Of course, I don't think any of us are able to answer that question even till today. It's a question, much larger question. But for a student, I think, putting this question in their head as, what, me and the world? Who am I in school? Who am I at home? There are a few of these things that we look at. For example, there's a project that we do for the slightly older kids in the grades 1 to 5. We had a question in the previous, one of the schools that I was doing, and they said, how much homework does Cambridge have? I couldn't answer that question. We do have work that the student has to do, but the definition of homework need not be the definition that we had in our previous. I think a kid should still do some kind of work at home. Some parents might agree, some parents might not. But I think all of us can agree on the kind of homework can definitely change. Or what a student does might change. So for example, one of the activities or the homework that we do, could be a lot of work for you too, is that the student needs to go. So in the my place, me and the world, they also learn about, in understanding the world, they also learn about age. What is it to be young? What is it to be old? And what is it to be very old? And that's taken care, that's addressed in their grades from the early years and the primary both. So one of the activities that they have to do is they have to go and interview an older person in their household. Either a grandmother or grandfather or anyone in that age group. And that's the activity they have to do. They have given a set of questions and they can add their own questions as well. And they have to go have this interview with their grandparents or anyone older in the family and ask them what it is to be old. They of course assisted with a set of questions and they come back to the classroom and they discuss it in the classroom with their teachers. Now, I'm sure all of us agree that's a great activity for the child to do. Force them to talk to an older person, right? But in the form of homework. But that is what we would define as homework in their early years. I'm sure all of us agree that this is the good kind of homework. The bad kind of homework could, I think all of us have done different versions of it, right? But there's a key aspect to all these 6 things, which is the personality of the teacher himself or herself. In a Cambridge classroom, one of the major things that we tell teachers is don't lose your personality because of the curriculum or because of the textbook. The personality of the teacher plays a huge role, and the way they interact with these kids regarding a specific topic would matter. Right? So that will always be in the forefront. We are trying to support the teacher as much as possible. There's also simple kinds of assessment. I know testing an earlier student or testing an grades 1 to 5 seems impractical, but assessment is still done. And one of the things that I told you about as to how you should look at your child's progress, this is one of those things. It would be a little unlearning for you and relearning as well, which is how do you assess your student? For Cambridge, the reason we assess the student at such a young age is to make sure that the next teacher knows what to do in the next classroom. And that's where it ends. It has nothing to do with the child. The teacher needs to know, okay, fine, this is where the student has a gap, they have to pass that information on to the next teacher. And the structure is in place in a way, but they will do it. It's not something that they can skip. They have to tell the next teacher because of the way the Cambridge curriculum is structured. So they will have to know the student, which is why we also have a lesser number of students per classroom. We have a maximum of 25 students per classroom that we would have, and we would have 1 teacher present. Of course, assisting or helping the teacher to understand the child better, and then they assess the student. For example, an assessment style for a grade, for a PP1 or PP2 student would be 15 minutes of them pointing at different things. That is the assessment. They are not writing it. They're just pointing at different things. What do you think is man-made? What do you think is natural? Simple questions like that. What is blue? What is green? They just point at things. How would it affect the child? Doesn't matter. Right? We know where the student is. The student is learning at a specific pace, but that needs to be passed on to the next classroom. As to the next teacher knows that, okay, these are the gaps, this is where the student is, this is where the student is. So we would request the parents also to look at assessing your students like that. They're not on a measuring stick. They're just at different points of their learning journey. Your student might have gone way ahead in physical development, but would be still figuring out mathematics. But it would be the other way around as well. Your student might be doing personal and social, emotional development very, very well, and the gap would be in physical development. But understanding these gaps and understanding what they're good at is what's important, and which is why the curriculum is also quite flexible. Moving on to primary and lower secondary, which is grades 1 to 5 and then 6 to 8. The students have about 10 subjects to pick from. And when I keep talking about flexibility, I think showing you the website would make more sense here. Yeah. So this is our, I don't know if you can see my screen, but these are the primary subjects that we have. So you have art and design, you have computing, you have digital literacy, you have English, you have English as a second language, you have global perspectives, you have humanities in 1 to 5, you have mathematics, music, physical education, science, and of course, primary well-being. All these are primary subjects. All of these subjects have instructions for teachers and how they have to deliver the curriculum, including physical education, art and music, and well-being. Like I said, the concepts are not the main thing here. The delivery style of each of these subjects is. So the teacher might be a subject matter expertise at a particular concept, but how they deliver the concept is what's important, and these different subjects are covered in primary and lower secondary. It also depends on, for example, as you go up, when you go to ITCSE, which is upper secondary, which is 9 and 10, students have about 70 subjects to choose from 10. And the 70 subjects are fast. I'll take you through them very quickly as well. But again, the flexibility for your student to learn what they want to learn what they may be good at, rather than forcing them to learn something that they might not be interested in. Since you're on the website, something that you could do as parents as well is to head over to the Cambridge website. There are questions, frequently asked questions for teachers, frequently asked questions for leaders, for parents, for a student as well. So if you want to know a little more as to how you can work with your child through the curriculum, the website would be a great place for you to start off. You can just go to Cambridge International, for example, if your student is in the early years, you go to early years and you'll see all of this here. You even have, for example, a sample, I think it should be somewhere here. Yeah, there's a sample of the curriculum as well if you want to look at it on the website itself. So it would be great for you to do a little bit of your own research here. Right. When your student comes into the primary, which is 1 to 5 or even lower secondary, they have these 10 subjects that I just showed you that they can pick from. Also depends on what subjects your school is delivering for you. Because we have, like in those 70 subjects that I said, about 35 of them are languages. We have languages from across the world, but it matters if your school is ready to deliver Mandarin, if you'd like, right? So it really depends on what your school is delivering. But in primary and lower secondary, it's not much of a challenge because all the 10 subjects are pretty core, which is English, mathematics, science, computing, and art and design. Along with these delivery, there's a lot of support in terms of the books. I don't know if you had a chance to look at the books that your child has. But they do play quite a key role for your students learning post the classroom. There's a lot of work, engagement that the student can do in a way that they enjoy with your books post classroom learning. But in the classroom, there's still a lot of dependency on the teacher and the book that the teacher uses in the classroom. You will see me and you'll hear me say flexible quite a lot because it is one of the key strengths of Cambridge. I don't think a lot of curriculums even come close to the kind of flexibility a student has in the way they learn and what they learn. I'm sure most of you will agree that in your households and teachers in your classrooms, you will know a student that's great at, probably not great at the core academics, which let's say science, but if you have to gather a group of 10, 15 students, you know who that student is. And they'll have that skill. But at Cambridge, what we want to do is to focus on all those skills. If your kid is good at group work and project work, that needs to be highlighted. And even in assessment patterns, a good group project is highlighted. And the students' qualities of bringing someone together, talking to them, not necessarily give them subject matter expertise, is an expertise as well. And that is acknowledged in the Cambridge classroom. So it's, of course, the teacher's responsibility, of course, to recognize those strengths. To quickly go through the subjects, I think I've already showed you the website, so that should tell you a lot. Again, computing and digital literacy, like I said, a lot of changes being made. We just introduced, I wouldn't say had to, but we did want to introduce a lot of AI and how they can use AI, honestly, in our curriculum. So there's a small section that's been added to digital literacy and the teachers are being told about, which is how can a student use AI to better their learning for the future and not necessarily say no, that this is not the right thing to do, but for them to come to reality that it is here, it is going to be present, it's not going to go away. And then how can a student use it to better their learning? It's something that we introduced into digital literacy just last year. You do have the other topics. Remember how I told you there's an example about physical education and your teacher has an objective, holding the ball, throwing the ball. As they go up the grades, similar instructions are given to the teachers. Your teacher's goal is to not finish the textbook, right? So it could be a point of discussion that you might have with your teacher at any point in time, saying you didn't complete all the 15 activities that are there in the textbook. The 15 activities are there for the teacher, so the teacher can decide which activity she wants to do for a classroom that works with her students. That's the idea. But completing the textbook, if a teacher completes the full textbook, we usually are quite surprised. Because that doesn't make sense for us, because the number of hours that we've allocated to that doesn't involve them completing the textbook. But it involves the teachers completing the learning objectives. So the teachers have a set of learning objectives, and that is their focus. They're always trying to do that, right? So they want to make sure. So for example, in the book, or what you might see is that the student catches the ball 10 times as an activity, but that's not the learning objective for the teacher. The teacher's learning objective would be very, very simple. It could be, is the student ready to play with the ball? Period. Whether they catch it, throw it, sit on it, doesn't matter. Are they comfortable with the idea of physical exercise? Are they comfortable with the idea of having a computer in front of them? Are they comfortable with the idea of talking to another person? That are the learning objectives for the teacher. not necessarily the activity itself. So if your student going back to that interview project, if your student goes back, does an interview with an older member of the family, comes back to the school and tells the teacher that they couldn't ask all the 10 questions, they could only ask 2 questions, but they spent about 30 minutes talking to the old parent. What do you think? Has the objective of the learning objective of the teacher complete or no?
Yes.
Complete. The idea was the student should understand that someone else is older than them and they have a different perspective of life than them. That was the idea, not necessary to fill up all the 10 answers. So even when you're talking to your students, you probably try and look at it from this perspective. It would really help. Your students would have a lot more to talk to you about if you ask them non-pointed questions like this. So, like I said, each of these subjects have learning objectives that provide a structure for teaching and learning both, and of course as a reference for you as well. One of the key strengths of Cambridge is transition from Cambridge to any other curriculum or Cambridge to Cambridge. Like I said, very few curriculums deliver right from early years to grade 12. In India, we have only Cambridge that does early years to grade 12. But at the same time, transitioning from Cambridge to other curriculums is a strength that we've had for a lot of years as well. So we have a lot of schools do 1 to 5 and then give the option to the parents as to do you want them to continue with Cambridge or do you want them to take up CBSE or any other national curriculum. That's still a choice that will be there for the student. But transitioning from grade 5 to CBSE grade 6 or any other curriculum is quite easy with Cambridge. If you ask me, is the transition towards Cambridge easy, which is starting grade 5 from national curriculum and switching to Cambridge, I would say that's slightly difficult because the student's learning has to change a little bit. So it will really depend on your teacher as to how they figure that part out and how they bridge that. It's not impossible and it's not that schools don't do it. A lot of schools do it because they feel that this curriculum is better for grades 1 to 5. Like I said, nothing is right or wrong. It's just a school of thought that particular school is convinced with. Even our conversations with them right from the beginning, our only discussions were, do you agree with the school of thought or not? And it came from a requirement from the school because they believe in the school of thought and then they thought which other curriculum matches with their school of thought. And Cambridge was one of them, fortunately, because our discussions were quite similar. We asked ma'am specifically, what do you want to do with the school? And all our objectives were quite similar and what she's already doing in some parts were quite similar to what we were doing. We said this is a perfect time. And that's how we approached taking up Cambridge curriculum for the school as well. As they go up, of course, there's a lot of schools delivering 9 and 10, which IGCSE or Cambridge. They have a lot of subjects, a lot of things that they can choose from. Transitioning from, now there was a question regarding what after 10th, if they have to, do national curriculum or they want to apply for Indian colleges. Now, I can tell you a very surprising stat. So this of course is AS and A level, which is 11th and 12th. They also have about 55 subjects. So there is this common myth where we know that a lot of parents think that all of us also did think that most of the Cambridge students would go abroad post. And I'm sure this is an assumption, rightfully so, that percentage was quite high towards a point of time. But also because Cambridge international education was not that accessible earlier. 10 years ago, it was not most accessible. It was delivered only at extremely expensive schools. And kids from these extremely expensive schools always tended to leave the country, whichever curriculum they were doing. So the myth here was we always assumed that a lot of Cambridge international students leave the country. Do you all have a percentage idea of how many percentage of students do you think leave the country and how many stay back? Any guesses? Sorry?
50-50.
50-50? Great guess. So it was 50-50, I think, 4-5 years ago. As of 2024, about 57 students decided to stay back in the country. It's not about just the recognition, it's about how does the student transition to learning. What we have noticed is that international students, international curriculum students, which is on Cambridge, are great to transition to university directly. Because the way a student learns in grade 11 and 12 in Cambridge is very similar to how they learn in university. It's a lot more child dependent. It's more student-led, the learning. And student-led learning starts from their early years itself, where the student makes the decision to learn what they want to learn. And that's constantly being told to them that you make the decision of what you want to learn. So when they come to the grades 11 and 12, the teacher plays a very minimal role in that aspect, in terms of how the student learns, because the kid is assumed that and they are pushed to learn by themselves, and it's also quite rigorous with Cambridge, which is why our students do very well in universities in India and abroad as well. We do have the accreditation with AIU in India, and we did have a lot of students pick up exam, do apply to universities in India, which is why at Cambridge we started something called the March series. We're all familiar with how we do examinations. Most CBSE and state board examinations happen in the month of March, a national curriculum in the month of March, and then you apply to universities and you go to universities. But throughout the world, the calendar is slightly different. I'm sure that you're quite aware of that as well. It's either you start, you end school in July or August, which is the summer for the rest of the country, some parts of the world, and then they start university. But it did make sense for Indian students, because we have to finish our examinations earlier so that we can apply for universities post that. Which is why Cambridge has something which is March series. And most of the schools in India currently do the March series, which shows us that kids want to stay back in India. But at the same time, we want to make sure that the flexibility still remains. What if 10 years, 15 years down the line, a student wants to leave the country? Today they want to stay back, tomorrow they might not want to. So the idea was to continue making it flexible. Having that recognition abroad, having that recognition in India is important for us. So we did take out any things, we just added. One of the key features is the curriculum, like I said, remains flexible, and even in the later years, which is grade 9, 10, 11 and 12, there are actually no compulsory subjects for a student. They're quite rare to happen, but we had one student in a school in Hyderabad in her grade 11 take up 3 subjects only, and all the 3 subjects she took were all related to English. So attend the examinations quick and fast, and I think they are the experts at that. But something that we are confident of is the fundamentals and concepts. That will definitely be covered in the classroom, and the way they learn these subjects will still remain the same. We have had students that have gone into IITs and gone to medical colleges straight from Cambridge without taking any coaching. I still think they are anomalies and they've done exceptionally well on the academic front, but that is possible for a student to do. For example, this is a quite few lists of actually just show you some confidence in terms of the accreditation and what your students can do. I thought it would be good for me to show you a couple of trends that we're looking at in India. There are a few preferred universities and Indian institutions that we have currently. This was from 2025, so we have Ashoka, Price, Flame, Kriya, Manipal, Vellore Institute of Technology, University of Mumbai. The reason why we see an uptick in these universities, this is not the most preferred, but the ones that they're constantly picking up. About 2-3 years ago, we do something called subject cafes for teachers specifically, where we have one person lead the room. Then we have about 15 or 20 rooms that we take up, and each room has a bunch of teachers. Each room is dedicated for one subject. About 5-6 years ago, in a classroom in Bangalore, for teachers specifically, they had one of these subject cafes. A psychology classroom saw about 3 teachers. That's it. 3 teachers and 1 facilitator. They sat for 2 hours together and discussed about their program. And then the teacher went back to school. As of last year, we had about 55 teachers, psychology teachers in one classroom. We had to do 2 classrooms for these teachers. Hyderabad, 2 months ago, we did a subject cafe for teachers. We had 2 teachers in the psychology classroom. And last year we didn't have any psychology at all. Right? So it's changing. What the students want is changing, and how they are communicating that to their parents is changing, and how the school that they're in is changing. So we are seeing an uptick. I just thought it would be great for me to mention this to you, so that you have this fact as well. That picking up other subjects, there's a huge trend in that, which is a good thing for us to look at. Of course, like I said, it's recognized worldwide as well. as of last year, 50% of Cambridge students from India went to the top 100 universities in the world, according to QS ranking. But 50% of the students that took up international universities post-Cambridge went to the top 100 universities. So that was a good stat for us to see that students are picking up good universities that they want to go to and they're able to do it as well. Across the world, I think this is not debated ever, but we do have about 2,220 universities, over 90 countries that recognize Cambridge qualifications. And the top ones that they usually go for are MIT, Cambridge, Stanford. But there was another thing that I wanted to show you as well. Yeah. So there's been a change in the kind of subjects that students take up. And the reason we talk about a few of these aspects in earlier than primary is also because of this. Because of the way students are picking up subjects is changing. Which doesn't mean that we give a lot of importance to mathematics and sciences in the earlier and ignore maybe computing and engineering. So we want to make sure that there's a balance of all of these subjects right from their younger grades so that at least they know what they're good at. That's been a challenge in most of our Indian classrooms is you rarely recognize what you are good at because the choices that you're able to be good at are also minimal. If there's a classroom A with a great sports teacher, a great computing teacher, a great science teacher, a great math teacher, you have all these core subjects being delivered, and then with equal importance, the student would have at least 4 options to know where they are good at and where they're not being good at. But if you have a classroom with just 2 subjects, and your student is not good at both of them, or not necessarily the strongest at both of them, they wouldn't know about their strengths in the other 2. Which is why we're constantly, focusing on the fact of flexibility, which is what you should be doing with your students as well, which is to give them an option to see if they're good at something or not, but just increasing those number of options. We do see a lot of parents sending their kids for multiple activities after school. It's great that you're doing it, and it's really nice to see that because it's giving your kids one more chance to see if they're good at something or not. You don't necessarily want all of them to become the best at what they're doing in those activities, but just to see what their strengths are at. So, globally, of course, we still have business and management being picked up right now a lot more, and we're seeing biology and science drop to 6. They were quite high up over the years, but it's dropping quite a bit. But just to keep in mind, these are stats that we are confident of because they're only Cambridge International School stats and not other school stats. So this is a couple of testimonials that we added in the end. This is a student that's pursuing IIT Delhi, who's done Cambridge. We have some students who have taken up medical, some students who have taken up engineering at different universities in the country. We kept the presentation also very India specific so that it is quite well. When it comes to coming to the fact, I want the teachers to be trained constantly. Now, keeping the legacy that Scholars has and keeping the legacy that the school has had across the city and the teachers that are here, something that we never take into doubt is the subject matter expertise of the teacher. I think they're still the best at in that specific room, they're the best ones to deliver the curriculum. And the second thing that we always assume is that the teacher knows the student the best. Right? So keeping these 2 things aside, we work on everything else. For example, one of the first things that a teacher training goes under is not necessarily how would you teach mathematics. It's about child-led play. Play-based learning. How does the student learn through play? And that is a training session that the teachers are undergoing currently and will undergo if they're taking up another session. Right? So those are the kind of training sessions that we do for the teachers. Play-based learning, which is what a lot of your students will be doing. How do you make a student to take their own decisions of how they want to do it? So the subject-based training comes a lot later, And we focus on subject-based training for the teachers that are teaching IGCSE and 6, 7, and 8. For our focus is how we're going to change the style of work. For this, the teachers need to train, they need to deliver, they need to go back and train, they need to deliver. And that's a commitment that Cambridge takes up because it's quite important for us. Another myth that a lot of people think is Cambridge International Schools have AC classrooms, have digital boards, have fancy infrastructure. All these three are false. In our infrastructure requirements, the first and foremost thing is, do you have a safe environment? Is your school fire certified? Does your school have a sanitation certificate? Does your school have all the safety norms in place? Do you have an NOC from the government rules? These are the things we take first. Once we know that your structural safety, all the certificates are in, is when we have the next conversation, which is, are your teachers ready to learn? Not, are your teachers ready? Because they have to be ready to learn constantly. We have courses for school leaders as well. So everyone continues learning, including your child. Now you might think that it's the first year, is my child a guinea pig for this process? Very, very valid question for you to ask. But there are a few prerequisites that we take to make sure, okay, even if the teacher begins training, are the teachers in the right mindset to deliver the curriculum? Which is more important for us? Right? The teachers need to be of the right mindset. You have a lot of schools where the teachers don't necessarily, nor the school believes in the school of thought of child-led play. They believe that there's a lot of focus should be on writing. Cambridge does not focus on writing in the early years. It's more about reading and speaking. Writing comes towards the end. Might confuse a few of our parents, saying, why are they not writing? But if you've noticed, each subject is linked with another. There's a subject called Global Perspectives that the student will be doing in grades 1 to 5. Global Perspectives is for them to understand what's happening in the globe, pick up a couple of topics, all led by the teacher themselves. But the idea of the second layer of learning is that the student knows how to work in a group. They need to know how to work in a group. And that's what Global Perspectives is being focused on. The learning objective for the teacher is that your child needs to be comfortable working in a group. What they're learning, again, secondary. How they're learning, more important. Right? Similarly, this happens for all other subjects as well. They'll be doing a lot of writing in mathematics, they'll be doing a lot of writing in other subjects. So then why do they have to repeat writing in English as well? They're writing in science, they're writing in humanities, they're writing in Global Perspectives. Do they need to spend another extra hour learning how to write in English? Not necessarily. Because the teacher, when they're teaching, has to focus on all these objectives in each classroom. Which is how the curriculum is designed. Like I said, it would be great for you to do a little more.
Also should learn how to question differently. Don't ask your child, why did you not do it? Rather, ask your child, maybe it is something that helps you and the child learn at the same time. Be open for that, because as adults, we are in the format where that we know better than our children. We can answer better, we know better, we have been there, I have gone through it, and this is something that is not new for me. That is the complacency which we all have as adults. But having a listening ear, making sure you interact with your children, working together with us, we are always there to help. And if there are new parents here, my old parents, can you raise your hands please? Well, yes, that's a good number. But all the new parents, we are committed to making sure that every question that is posed to us will be got back to you with an answer in the 24 hours framework. We are going to tell you whether we are working on it, or we will come back to you with an answer. That is the promise as a scholar that I make to you from the leadership team. So remember, we are all learning. Even I am learning, and I am open for your questions as well. And I love challenges, that is what I can tell you. And that is the way we evolve, that is the way we learn, and that is the way your children are going to embrace what is coming their way. So don't give them answers. Please, that is what you need to do. because they are smart enough, they can figure it out. So lead them with an understanding, lead them with a thought, lead them with a question, let them figure out their way. It doesn't have to have a complete answer. It can be through the process of learning. So we are committed to making sure that we take your questions. We will help you, but at the same time, we, I think, need a lot of your support and cooperation too. And I know everybody is working, and without what we make today, we wouldn't have been able to give what we can give our children. A life that they would deserve today is because of your hard work. But at the same time, it's very important. And one other thing before I close. All of you remember one thing. Whenever your children are young, my children are grown up, so I would want to tell every parent this. When my children were growing up, they came to me, along with me, they came to the school, they were around with me, and the only satisfaction today I have is that they were with me. How much time did I spend with them? Did I do what I wanted to do? I would have done a lot of research papers only on my children if I would have really paid some more attention to them, is what I feel today. But the time is gone. I can't get it back. Remember, your children will be there with you, and they are children only for a certain number of years. And here, I think it's very important to have that bond, that relationship, that love, the touch, the feel. Hug your children. Make sure that you tell them that you love them enough and more every single day. Before you go to bed, we say, thank you, Lord, because you're taking care of us and we are safe. And take care of my day that's coming my way tomorrow. A prayer that we say, it should be a prayer also to make sure you hug your children and tell them that you love them. And this is very important, and this is the emotional cohesion that we miss today. And it's not that you're not doing it, sorry, don't take it the other way around, but I think it's important for me to tell you how important it is, the touch that matters, and the comfort that you give a child to speak up and to know that you are always there for them. This is what I could give my children when they were little. All I did, I held their hand, I made sure, I told them that I'm always there for you. And today I will repeat it loud and clear to them, no matter what, I'm always there for you. And they understand when I say that. There are a lot of dialogues that we can just say and forget. But these are the things that really touch their hearts, and they will always remember and come back to you. This is the learning that we want our children to have. This is the learning that we want, the reciprocation. It is on top of the triangle. If that child does not act to what we do, whatever we are doing will not suffice the child, will not give the child what the child really needs. So, this is my kind request to all of you. Do it every single day. Don't forget, it is like a mantra, and this mantra will help you, help your children, and they will also be emotionally attached. I see that there are no emotions these days. I don't know what you feel about your children, but sometimes they really don't reciprocate. So please, and also tell your children, no matter what, we stop judging people. I mean, she is like that, he is like that, they are like that. This is something that we waste time and energy on negative and unnecessary things. The environment that we create is going to be more important to face the challenges that your child is going to face in the world. That we are not talking just about the classroom. This classroom preparation will help them take the world at large, and that is where we look at. So remember to take these things as we begin our new curriculum, and to all the parents who have their own questions about this is new, how are we going to do, or this is new, how are my children going to get themselves into it. The answer is a very difficult one, but I promise that I'll give you the best to the best of our abilities. I have been in education or been part of an educator for half of my life now actually. So 19 years I've been here, and I think as I already mentioned, I love challenges. This is a challenge. No matter what, we are going to do whatever it takes to make sure your children learns the right thing, the right way, and having the right attitudes towards their learning. So, any other things, I mean, if you know me or if you do not know me, I'm Mrs. Shilpa Reddy, Directors of Scholars Institutions, and my number is everywhere. You can reach me whenever you would want to drop in a message. I don't pick up the phone calls, unknown numbers. Of course, they are not unknown, but my phone shows it is unknown. So I request you all to drop in a message if there is no response from the people who really need to get back to you. So that is the promise I deliver to each of you, and we will work together. As I said, we all have to be a part of it. And I will only ask you, spend that 10 minutes, if you can give 10 minutes. Yes, we all helper used to say, Amma, 6:30 I'm gone. By 6:30 I have to be home. That is the respect that my work gave me, my boss told me, and I told my boss whatever it is, I have to be there for my children. And this is something we have to start giving back to our children. If you think that school can do everything, I think school should be functioning 24 hours, not just 8 hours or 10 hours when children are here. So the rest of it is in you. The rest of it is how you manage your time, and please make sure you are there for your kids, and that will speak a lot for them. Today if you are not there, tomorrow they will not be there for you. As simple as that, period. And we are going to grow old very soon. It's coming. I mean, now I see that because my children are grown up, they make their own thing. They don't need me at all. They don't need me at all in the sense at all. Even if I offer to help them, they say, Mom, that's fine, I can manage. Don't let them say that, because it's coming very soon. We will think that only they are little, it's okay, if not today, tomorrow. That tomorrow will never come back if you start procrastinating, and that is going to be something your child will remember forever. And please, I'm not trying to lecture here, dear parents. You're all from a very young generation. My generation is gone, my kids are gone, and they know now the life that they are leading is not the life your children will lead.